Alright, this is take number. Holy shit, how many fucking times have I done this? But, yeah, anyway, I wrote a story, and I want to read it out loud for all of you. And the story's called CURIO. So, fuck CURIO. Like, it's just a dude living in a city. So, once there was a city that required all kinds of tasks of its citizens in order to function. There was wood to chop, food to hunt, food to gather, crops to sow, tend, and harvest, tools to make, maintain, and be used for this or for that, people to take care of, interact, and deal with, structures to build, maintain, and repair, things people needed distributed, organize, and arrange. The list was endless. The city was of such a size, and in such a place, and in such a copious and abundant eddy of time that all of the city's citizens were able to find a task they were able to pour their hearts into. All except one man, CURIO. Despite trying his hand at all of the tasks that needed to be done, more tasks than anyone else had tried, CURIO found his heart unable to fit into any of them. No matter how much CURIO dedicated himself to the task he found before him, he could not prevent his mind from wandering away to distract and entertain itself with thoughts and stories about what was, what had been, and what could be. CURIO did not think the tasks before him unimportant, nor did he believe the thoughts in his head so special. But neither could he find a way to silence them, or to pour his heart into the motions he found himself to be a part of. Over time, CURIO realized he was never satisfied unless he was weaving together some kind of story. To satisfy this need that had always been present but only now was seen, CURIO began to spend his evenings in small, empty amphitheaters telling himself his stories with a fuller focus and energy than was available to him during his days. With his realization, CURIO also gave up finding a task fit for his heart to pour itself into. Looking upon his past, CURIO realized he had tried almost every available job, and all of them followed the same pattern. All at first seemed to suit his heart perfectly, but over time, inevitably, would erode into meaningless rituals that his heart, having tasted, would find to be far from perfect. CURIO eventually decided to return to his old job moving stones for the local quarry, because he found the more he moved during the day, the better his stories became by night. CURIO was happy. No one seemed to notice his lack of heart as he drifted from task to task at the quarry, and he spent his days telling his stories to himself in peace. But others had noticed CURIO. They noticed him before, when he seemed to wander from task to task with no urgency, and they noticed him now, this odd man who had returned to them, hurrying urgently from place to place. He had a wild concentration upon his face. None of them could match, and yet, somehow, this man, CURIO, his work was less effective than any of theirs. CURIO's co-workers talked of such things as they hung out in the evenings, for they had nothing else to entertain themselves with and nothing else to talk of. And one evening, they resolved to ask CURIO, the following day, for more of himself. After work, the next day, one of CURIO's co-workers asked him what he thought about while working that caused his face to contort with such concentration. CURIO thought about lying, but looking out at these men he considered his friends, and seeing their eyes full of honest curiosity before the question posed, he admitted his truth. All day, every day, CURIO was focused on entertaining himself with the thoughts and stories that would come to him as he worked. Another voice joked from the crowd, "Ha! I understand now how you can appear more focused than any of us and yet still barely accomplish the same amount of work." CURIO did not know what to say. He shrugged and laughed. His co-workers seemed amused, but CURIO did not mind. After a time, a third voice from the crowd cried from behind the rest, "You mentioned you tell yourself stories after work. Could you tell us one of your stories?" CURIO thought for a moment and saw no reason why not. He said anyone who wished to join him at one of the small local amphitheaters that saw no use anymore was welcome to come. And so it was. As he did every night, CURIO told a story to entertain himself, except this night, he told his story before a crowd of his friends. And when CURIO finished, they cheered. It was incredible. CURIO had no idea that others could possibly find what he did interesting, and seeing the crowd react with such passionate energy towards his words. Oh, CURIO could never have imagined such events. It was a perfect moment where CURIO felt gratitude's gentle hands caressing him from all sides, impressing his senses with an overwhelming love that he had never before felt and that he could not describe. But as all moments do, it ended. And yet, despite the cheers dying down, a great energy remained in the air. CURIO watched himself move through the small crowd and listened to their passionate conversations, the actions he performed now being outside of his own control. What his friend said settled into his mind, and he realized, after listening to half a dozen conversations, a strange feeling had come over him. On the one hand, it felt special to share with others what, until now, had only been for him. But CURIO realized none of them actually heard exactly what he heard or saw exactly what he had seen. Dazed and still outside of himself, CURIO watched as he continued to wander among the crowd and listened to their thoughts. It was horrible. Every conversation was different. Everyone saw something different because everyone heard something different. And CURIO hadn't shared his story with any of them because no one saw any of the things that he saw. CURIO could take his torment no more. He rushed back to the stage and roared at the crowd how they did not listen, and so they did not know what they heard, how they were blind, how they were foolish, and how he cursed himself now for ever believing it a good idea to share one of his stories with them to begin with. After a few moments of silence, a voice called out from the crowd. "Friend CURIO!" One of the other workers who had earned the respect of all had appeared at the front of the crowd. "You were angry we all hear your story differently. But we are all different people." CURIO heard a murmur of assent arise from the crowd and, looking past the older man speaking, he saw them nodding as well. Being different people, it is natural we hear and we see different things than you do in your own words. For we have different sets of experiences we are forced to make sense of your words with. But friend CURIO, think. The words you find such great delight in entertain us as well, and in ways we never could have imagined. We've not wandered through so many jobs as you. We have not wondered as you have wondered either. So I want to ask you to consider something. Is not our ability to experience something different from your words a greater gift than us all experiencing the same thing? CURIO was not sure. He didn't know how to respond. The old man pointed at CURIO and shouted, "We all see you now! You put your heart into your stories whether you like it or not, and whether you know you're doing it or not. You are, of course, a great service to us at the quarry, but, well, as far as your stories go, if you would tell them to us, we would have them. We can plunder the earth for our precious stones, but we do not know how to plunder our minds for the gems you excavate with your words." CURIO had imagined many things with the time he had been given. Many things. But, well, he had never imagined anyone finding use for any of the ramblings that he entertained himself with day and night. But that was it, he realized. He could not see the use of his stories for anyone but himself. And yet, others still somehow saw use in them. That night, CURIO slept as one sleeps, whose heart is full and whose heart is at peace, secretly weaving a tale for the morrow.